Hello, everyone. Hello. This is Nora Armani from New York talking about our special series this month, which is called Unbroken Memory and Identity in Lebanese Cinema. I am sitting here in front of a beautiful poster, which was graciously allowed for us to use by Tom Young, artist Tom Young of Beit Bustani, which unfortunately has since been destroyed in the horrible blast of August 2020. The reason I mention that is because the entire idea behind us putting together this series is to mark the anniversary, the first anniversary of the terrible blast that shattered Beirut and shook all of Lebanon and the world. But a lot of people in the world outside of the Middle East know very little about Lebanon. And we were concerned, we wanted to shine the spotlight on its culture, on its cinema, on its art, on its heritage and tradition, so that people do not look at Lebanon as just another disaster zone in the Middle East, somewhere, someplace which they don't even know how to pinpoint on a map, but to associate it with the lives of people, with a culture, with a heritage, and with films, especially, and filmmakers. We are lucky today to have with us filmmakers, and I am going to be introducing them to you as we go along. So I will open the floor so you can start by seeing the filmmakers, first of all. There you are. We are very lucky to have them all with us. So now I have to find the chat and start introducing, making introductions. So I don't know if everybody's screen shows in the same way or it doesn't, but I will just go in whatever order I am seeing you in. So I have here Soraya Umewaka. I hope I am pronouncing it correctly. Soraya is the director of Tomorrow We Will See, Bukra Minshuf in Arabic, which is a documentary that offers a window into how 10 Lebanese artists overcome sectarian divisions through their artwork. Soraya produced this documentary with her mother, Madeleine Abdel Jalil Umewaka, who is of Lebanese origin. I have then Adam Jamal, whose passion for cinema started at a very young age. Coming from a family who are very heavy film lovers, Home, which is his film, the title of his film, would be his directorial debut, presenting the style that he is attempting to showcase. In January 2020, he directed a music video for Safar, an independent Lebanese band. His upcoming short film, Amleth, shot in August 2020, is currently in post-production. In February 2021, he directed his second music video for Koza, another Lebanese band. Then I have Ghada Youssef, joining as a writer and director of the short film Anagnorisis. And she has a passion to filmmaking and she takes it as her life project. It's a great way of approaching it, not as I gotta make it, but this is a life project. She has a strong interest in experimental films that trigger the audience's thoughts, not only emotions. And she's Lebanese and currently residing in Lebanon. I have also Yara Melki, who is an aspiring filmmaker from Beirut, Lebanon. And in 2020, she graduated from the International College of Beirut with an IB diploma and is now studying film and television at New York University's Tisch School of the Arts. Yara aims to tell the untold stories of hardships faced by people all over the world, starting with her home country, Lebanon. Her latest project, August 4th, 2020, is part of this selection. and it portrayed and explored the psychological and emotional impact of the Beirut explosion on its inhabitants on that fateful afternoon of August 4th, 2020. I also have Zayn Alexander, who is a Lebanese filmmaker and actor based in New York City. Alexander's debut short film, Abroad, is an intimate drama that explores the life of a Lebanese immigrant couple, made its world premiere at the 2018 Santa Barbara International Film Festival. Alexander's second directorial effort, Manara, Lighthouse, screened during the 76th Venice Film Festival in the Giornate degli Autori section in a special screening. Most recently, Alexander was awarded the prestigious Hayrala Art Prize for Abroad's deep and honest exploration of diaspora and immigration. I also have Paul, let me see, it's not in here, so I have to go and find the other email. Okay, sorry, Paul. Okay, second. Right. Paul is an independent journalist covering the Middle East and Africa. He lived in Bilad al-Sham, Cyprus, Palestine, and Lebanon for 24 years. That's quite some time, mainly in Beirut, where he studied for a master's in Middle Eastern Studies at the American University of Beirut, graduating the month before the July 2006 war. Paul left Beirut in 2019 and now lives in KwaZulu-Natal, South Africa. Okay, now that I think I've done the rounds, made the rounds, and I didn't introduce myself, which I should do actually, because everybody knows me as the artistic director or the founder of the Socially Relevant Film Festival, but they don't know about the other side of my life, which is actor, first and foremost, and filmmaker myself as well. My most recent film, which is called I, Migrant Woman, and it's going to be part of the screening of the program we're doing at the end of the month, which is about Black, Indigenous, people of color films. And it has won me an award already as Best Woman Director in Shorts at the Toronto Independent Film Festival of SIFT, and has become semi-finalist and finalist in a number of festivals. So I'm very proud of that. It's my second short and my third film, because the first is a co-direction of a feature film that I did. And of course, I take pride in my work as an actor and filmmaker, as well as organizer of the festival. And I know what that means, because having been there myself, I have a lot of respect to filmmakers. And first and foremost, before we open the floor and let you all introduce yourselves, I want to thank you all. To thank you for making films, to thank you for bringing your films to us, for trusting us with your films, and for being part of this program, which, as I said, we are doing to mark the first anniversary of the explosion that happened in Beirut last August. So before we go any further, I would like to go around quickly and allow you all to quickly say something about yourselves, your film, and so we can get to hear you. And then we'll go into the questions. So maybe who wants to start? We should just jump in instead of going in the same order each time. Any takers?
Sure.
Soraya, there you go.
I'm based in Tokyo, Japan. And as Nora said, my mother is of Lebanese origin. I made Tomorrow We Will See, Bukra Shov, roughly 10 years ago. And I wanted to showcase the voices of 10 incredibly talented artists. And so this was a collaborative effort with my mother, who was also the producer of the documentary.
Cool, great. Next, Yara. Maybe I should say the names because you're being shy.
Hi, I'm Yara, and I'm currently in Lebanon, but I'm studying in New York, so I'm mostly there most of the year. And August 4th, 2020 was my first animation, and it's a short animation that I did a few months after the explosion that portrayed like my personal experience, but as well as some of my friends and obviously a lot of people in Lebanon about how how it impacted them emotionally and how it affects especially people who had to leave their home country roughly 2 weeks after or a couple of weeks after the traumatic event.
Zayn?
Hi, everyone. So my film is called Manara, and me and my, it's another collaborative effort between me and writer-actress Pascal Seigneury, who's a dear friend. And we wanted to make a film about obsession with appearances among Lebanese families. And Manara is the result of that. And it deals with the dysfunctional relationship between two different generations who see things differently. One of them prioritizing obsession with appearances and how the immediate community perceives them at the expense of the well-being of the children. So that's essentially what Manara is about.
Great. I guess I have Paul next. Paul?
Hello, everybody. So I co-directed a documentary called Water, which is the political economy of water in Lebanon. We started in late 2000 filming, and the inspiration was actually the first cameraman. He said to me, "Why don't we make a documentary?" And we were like, "Yeah." And we looked sort of at a topic, and water was as a crucial issue in Lebanon. And then what was the real driver to start making was the 2015 trash crisis, which happened that summer in July, carried on for months. And that was the springboard into the documentary. And then we roped in Karim Aid-Sabah, who did his PhD on water in Lebanon. And then Karim came, co-director, and he also managed to then get us some funding through the American University of Beirut for the film, which just covered the costs of producing it.
Oh, we've lost Paul. Okay, it's happening because for people who are joining in from Beirut, it's really daunting. We also lost Ghada. I wanted to introduce her, and then now she's completely gone. Okay, so let's continue. Who hasn't gotten a chance to introduce themselves? I'll bring Paul back. And I don't know where Ghada is. I'm not seeing her in the green room. Yes, Paul, we lost you for a second there, and now you're back. I hope your connection is better now. Paul, can you hear me?
Sorry, did you lose me? It reloaded.
Oh, okay. Yeah. For a second, you dropped out, and then I brought you back. So I think your connection is kind of spotty. And we've lost Ghada. I don't know where she is. Okay.
Where did you lose me?
Well, you were talking, I think you were pretty much done because you said about the co-director who is a PhD in the water and came on board and was able to get your funding and so on, which was just about covered and everything, and then you dropped. So
okay. So yeah, I just said it took about 2 years to finalize and come together, and we made the Beirut Art Festival in 2018.
Yeah. Great. So I think we have pretty much introduced everybody who's here. if Ghada comes back, I will see her. Oh, Adam, you did not. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't mean to bypass you. I was looking at the bios and I felt, I already. So please go ahead and talk to us about your film.
No worries. So I live in Lebanon currently, and I did this film around 2 years ago. And I think at the time, what I was trying to explore was the idea of how grief can affect the definition of a home, in a sense, and how the complexity of what we think a home can be can change what grief enters, which is something I think is what I was trying to explore then. But I think looking back at it, watching it now, 2 years from now, I think a lot of my work has this idea of what a home means and what it means once someone has left it, regardless of it could mean a personal reason like grief, or it could be a societal reason like August 4th, or something in relation to anything that ends up causing someone to get in this loop of where do I stay? What is the idea of a home for me? If I leave my home, is it still a home technically? Or what is the time for you to say that you are part of a home or in a new home or anything in that mentality? So I think it's something that I continue to build on, I think even after I did the short. So that's basically, I think, what I tried to look for when starting with it first, because I think I was still experimenting with it.
Yeah, it's a very interesting topic, especially for people who have changed homes many times in their lives.
100%.
Most of the people who are on this panel fall into that category. I personally have moved like about 18 times. And when I say moved, I'm not talking about moving within one city from one apartment to another. I mean like major moves, like from one country to another, and starting over and changing everything and so on. And the other short film that I had made is called Moving Stories. And in fact, that's what it is about. It's, two women who meet. One of them has been living in the same place for 40 years and moving out of that place. And the other, who has been moving 18 times in her life, is moving into that place, and how they just briefly cross each other. So this idea of home is very, very important. And it's a recurring theme. So I'm sure in all of the films that we are talking about right now, even with the water film, your documentary, Paul, it has something about home. Because with the water, when I watched it and I go, how can one really be so negligent about their own environment? Because it's your home, it's your water, it's your, and we see the trash, we see the world, the universe, Earth is our home as human beings, and look how we are treating it. So we come back to the concept of home all the time. Yeah. Okay, so we're having issues with the Lebanese internet, I am sure. But yeah. All right, so I'll go on and ask you the questions that I have prepared. Please kindly mute your mic when you are not speaking, because we are getting a lot of noise in the background. So my first question is, I always am interested in finding out why a filmmaker chooses a particular topic, or why a filmmaker makes a particular film instead of another. For example, why did I make about moving stories? Why did I make about migrant women? And why did Soraya decide to talk to all the artists? So let's find out where that idea was triggered and how did she come up with that idea. Soraya?
Yeah, I would say there are two main reasons. So one personal, and then the thematic reasons. So the personal reason was because I really wanted to spend time with my grandmother, who was living in Beirut at the time. She was suffering from Alzheimer's. I wanted to spend more time with her before she lost her memory. And then I would say that I chose the theme of artists because I wanted to, deepen my understanding of Lebanon through the eyes of artists. And at the beginning, I had the expression that my grandmother would use a lot, would use often, which is "Bukra minshuf," which means tomorrow we will see. And it really captures, how people need to grapple with the uncertainty and the volatility of the political landscape. So I knew that I wanted to, sort of explore, how the political uncertainty affects the lives of artists and how they perceive Lebanon and what they want to convey through their artworks. So this was a process that took about a year and a half or so, and I really enjoyed every moment of the production.
That's really interesting because artists, of course, politicians have a completely different idea about this, but artists are the most important core element of any society because they have not only the insight of what is going on around them, but also the means of being able to express about that, talk about that, show people about it. And a lot of times it's also got to do not only with ideas and thoughts, but also an emotional content, which is very, very important because a lot of times with political discourses, we tend to overlook the emotional content and humanity, and anywhere, any human being reacts much more emotionally to anything than through a very wisely devised thought process. So artists are the people who bring us back and put us in touch with our emotions. And in Soraya's film, we get to meet these artists. So I will take a moment here and tell everybody who's watching, we have a very nice crowd, by the way, guys. It's very interesting. And everybody who is watching, please don't be shy to put your questions in the comment section so that the filmmakers here can address them. You can either direct a question to a particular filmmaker or address a general question and they will answer them. So it's very, very important to be addressing the artists. And the films that we are talking about now, they all run online on our program. And this is where you can find that information on our website, ratedsrfilms.org, and you can log in and watch all the films. Single tickets are only $5 if you want to watch one film and get out. But it's much better to purchase an all-access pass, which is $25, and you can get to see 16 beautiful films, including incredible classics from Maroon Baghdadi, Jocelyn Saab. We have Caramel, the old Caramel, wonderful all-time favorite by Nadine Labaki, who is back with us, and all the wonderful films of the filmmakers who are here today with us in our session. So let's continue. Yara, can you introduce yourself, your film, and talk about it?
Yes, of course.
We have a question for you as well, but I'll ask it afterwards.
Okay. I had to leave Lebanon and move to the US on August 18, so 2 weeks after the explosion. And I had started with my classes, and one of them was Introduction to Animation, and I have never taken an animation course before. So throughout the class, our teacher started telling us to start thinking about an idea for our final project, which was we had to submit in December. And obviously back then, all I could think about was what happened back home, and it was still very fresh in my mind. And so I decided to focus on that because I like processing stuff through art, and I also wanted to. I felt like it wasn't being talked enough in the US wherever I went, I just felt like I wanted to talk about the explosion, and no one there understood exactly what I was going through. So I decided to channel all of that through this project, which was for my class. And so I had a broader idea about talking maybe about the explosion itself, and then also the economic crisis and so many other things. But then my teacher told me to narrow it down to one thing, and I decided to focus. And she said, the more personal you make it, the easier it will be for you. So I decided to portray basically how I was processing it, living far away from home, and how it was being how I was being asked about it by foreigners, and it just shows the clash between two cultures as well, and how they don't understand what you're going through. And I thought that it would also help and kind of portray what my other friends who had to move at the same time as me to the US or to Europe or to other countries, what they were feeling at the same time. And so this is where my inspiration came from, and why I decided to make this film.
And you
at the time.
succeeded, because in 3 minutes, I must mention that it's 3 minutes, everybody. In 3 minutes, Yara is able to pinpoint the dimension of, or the disaster, the huge impact of the disaster, but also not only stay where it happened, but bring it all the way to New York and show us how people who don't know anything about it, who have only heard it on the news, or who are not necessarily directly concerned, how they would react to it. And in a way, it summarizes beautifully the whole idea why we put together this program, because it shows the problem and it shows the way people reacted to it. It's very interesting because the question that was asked to you, you already answered it in a way. The question is from Nadim Shahadi. Hi, Nadim. We are so happy to have Nadim. He's the executive director of the Lebanese American University New York campus, and we are very happy to be partnering with the LAU on this occasion. This program is a partnership with SRFF, the Socially Relevant Film Festival, on which channel we are today, and the Lebanese American University. And Nadim's question to Yara is, why did you choose to mix film with animation? And I think Yara already answered that, because it was a class requirement and she kind of was going in that direction. And I think with animation, and it has become a recent trend in cinema internationally, major disasters, explosions, war, violence, and all that sort of stuff, a lot of filmmakers have been resorting to animation, because through animation, you can say and show things that are not so graphic, and they don't become violence porn. They don't become capitalizing on the element of violence, as most newscasts do, or as most Hollywood films do, but instead they tell the story. And by mixing animation, you're able to do that in a more, how should I say, decent way, maybe. It's a good way of putting it. We have Ghada back with us. Fantastic. Maybe we'll use the opportunity, since your system is working. So why don't you introduce your film and tell us something about it quickly? Oh, I hope you don't freeze. I'm seeing her freezing. If it will help to shut your video and just use sound, maybe it's easier. Or maybe I'll go to Paul and then come back to you. Paul?
Okay, but is it okay? Do you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now. Okay, Paul, sorry. Let's use Ghada's moments of spotty internet. Okay, tell us. Are we able to hear you, Ghada?
Sorry.
I think I have a very bad internet connection. It's lagging
Yeah,
a lot. So if
but
you're
we
not
can hear
hearing
you
me
right now.
well,
Yeah.
either not. Okay, so just quickly, maybe I would take the opportunity to say about Anagnorisis is that it was my capstone film project, and 18, and at the time it was just a personal story and nothing more than lost my aunt when I was very young. I was 11, and that was so hard on me. And
We're
that
losing.
was the beautiful what if, what we cannot live and have as a reality. I try to make it as a film, and I think right now, the way I look at it with everything going on in Lebanon is that I believe everyone who has lost someone dear to them with everything that was happening, and of course during the explosion, that we all love to have a final dance with those who lost, all surprisingly. All of a sudden, we just woke up and they're not there. And it would be amazing if we can have body movement express our emotions. And I try to explore loss from that perspective. And it was great to look at the film after 2 years from that perspective.
What you are saying, because like I was saying a little while ago, when I was talking about Soraya's film, an artist's expression. So here we go. Already we have three different artists. One went through a documentary and talked to other artists. The other used animation. The third one used dance in her film. So we are seeing that all forms of art are converging in telling a story, in talking about disaster, in talking about major upheavals in our lives. And this is a wonderful example of that. Thank you, Ghada. So, about Paul, tell us something about. We'll come back to you, Ghada. I think your electricity is back, so I can see that, right? Are you, or you're still on a spotty internet? It's okay. We'll come back. So, Paul, how about
So
you tell us a little bit about your film?
I mean, a lot of the inspiration was the environmental degradation going on in Lebanon, which I was sort of amazed that no one had done anything particularly on water or on other issues. And I arrived to live in Lebanon in 2002, and it was a sort of downward slope on water quality, electricity, the other issues, and then following the 2006 war, things just get worse and worse year by year. And the trash crisis was sort of became the apex of the whole situation. And we were very fortunate. We started working on it after the trash crisis. But when we interviewed the experts, they were really angry, and they were also very passionate about what they were saying, which really added to the documentary, I think. From a journalist background, and he would think that absolutely everything is important. We have to shove everything in. And I mean, we ended up with the first cut of like an hour and a half, hour and 40 minutes, and be 2 hours, and then we had to cut back to 40 minutes. Because yes, so much is very important, and it is actually quite a complicated story in many ways, in how the water system works and operates in Lebanon. But then we also needed to put it within a context. So obviously the sort of documentary, and for me as a journalist, that's sort of the most straightforward sort of way of doing things. It would have been great to have used animation in many ways, and animation would also save some issues I feel, and some problems in education. But it was also very much part of the sort of learning and filming experience, getting out there and I mean, I knew the situation wasn't good, but then when you really get out into the, the field and, in the mud, so to speak, in the rivers and literally amid the trash, realized how really, really bad the situation was. I mean, so much so that I had a son in 2017, and the environmental degradation was a big push for actually making the film. I mean, it's now a 40-minute documentary, but the opening scene is me walking along the beach there by the airport, and you can't actually see the beach. I'm literally up to my knees at points in plastic and rubbish that just been washed ashore. In some of the off takes and things like that, I actually fell over quite a few times, and I was wearing the thickest leather boots possible and thick trousers and stuff like that, because who knows what was underneath there. I mean, and our first cameraman, he actually got very sick from filming some of the burning trash piles, particularly in the Bekaa, but also in Beirut as well, and trying to say something, and to push for sort of a change, and also to make people really aware of the environmental situation, because so much gets focused on Lebanon, but not the environment. There's often, I mean, you hardly ever hear about talking about the environment, and it's so low down on the list of we're living thing from water. And that was also sort of a poke and a push that to sort of people within the Bible. This is something everyone needs, and we've got to preserve that resource.
Yeah, I'm very glad you're saying that you decided to cut it down, because my experience, having run the Socially Relevant Film Festival for the past 8 years and having seen a whole host of documentaries, I always notice that a documentary film, it can be on the most interesting and most pressing subject possible. After about 52, it's not by accident that they put 52 minutes, 52 minutes to 1 hour, you start losing interest, regardless of how important the things that are left to be said may be. And therefore, my advice, my 2 cents worth of advice after 500 films, is to filmmakers who are making documentaries, or any kind of film for that matter, is do it and then do it again, make it much more briefer and much more compact, because then what you can say in less amount of time, you don't need more time, because when you start going into more time, you become, without wishing it, without wanting it, repetitious. Regardless, it becomes either repetitious or it becomes pedantic, trying to lecture about something or show something. But what we can say in a more compact amount of time eventually ends up becoming a lot more impactful. So your film had also a scary element. I think you should submit to horror film festivals, because it is really horrific in a way that what the world is going through. You showed the microcosm in the situation of Lebanon, but if we multiply that by all the countries in the world who have similar issues, I think the Mother Earth does not have much left to live if we go by this. And the recent fires and floods and landslides and everything else that has been, earthquakes, everything that's been going on in the world as we speak, are a manifestation of the way the environment is protesting, and it has really come to saturation point. And a film like Paul's shines the focus once again on this most important issue, in this case concerning Lebanon, but also in the wider, larger spectrum, something to do with the entire world. Okay, we have a question. Lucy says, hello from New York. Question to all of you. I was wondering how well your films are received in Lebanon. Can they find their audience? This is a great question, Lucy, and we're going to save it until after everybody has had a chance to introduce themselves, because we have Zayn and Adam left for them to talk about their films. And then we're going to address this very interesting question. Okay, Zayn. The reason, the idea,
Yes. In addition to what I said before about wanting to make a film about obsession with appearances among Lebanese families, I think the thematic components in the film are, obviously much inspired by personal experiences with in Lebanon and among Lebanese families, about how we're not really taught to talk about our emotions when it comes to when it comes to situations where that's pretty much needed in order to find healing, in order to develop problem solving skills. And I think that's those thematic components are resonated very much with whoever got to see the film, and those were, I guess, resonate with me as well. So yeah. The other part of the question, remind me.
It was about the reason, the idea. Why did you choose this topic?
Yeah, well, again, like I said, when I got together with Pascal, we decided that we're going to talk about something that touches home with a lot of our generation when it comes to growing up in conservative parts in Lebanon and in Lebanon in general. And again, that is how hard it is to not be able to talk about your emotions growing up, and how that affects future coping skills.
Yeah, so it's very interesting, because I'm also seeing, besides the artist theme that unites all of your films, I'm also seeing the personal point of view. Always a good story and a good film is triggered by a personal experience and a personal point of view and a personal quest and a need to tell a story that coincides with a particular period of our lives, like Soraya wanting, as an artist herself, to talk to other artists, and Yara with the situation that she was finding herself in. Same with Ghada, and Paul with his son being born, and suddenly he starts wondering about what kind of future is there for a newborn in this world today. And Zayn's film, which also deals with a particular family issue. And we come last but not least to Adam. Let me see how and why you got this idea, the reason behind it.
So the thing is, I think I spent a good amount of time wanting to do a horror short. And the more I tried to wreck my head around it over and over again, I realized that it was a bit far-fetched for me to do something more genre-oriented. So I try to look within myself, I think, and within personal experiences that we were talking about now, I think I found what I wanted to do when I wrote about home. And when I wrote about home, I realized that, in particular, this topic in relation to home and everything meant a lot to me growing up. We were talking about moving around a lot and everything in that mentality. And I think it was a gateway for me to realize that within certain things, I can address certain aspects of sociopolitical issues that we can address through the idea of horror, in a sense. Because at this point, I mean, grief is no longer a personal thing that's going on in Lebanon. Grief has entered all our homes in some way or another. Grief has found its way into our house, into our living rooms, into our bedrooms, in whatever way that it could be. So at this point, I think that the reason for why I wanted to do it then is that I really wanted to explore the process of how someone would go through grief when it would in some way or another enter their house. And I really wanted to focus on the intimate moments within a person's process. I think I experimented with a scene where it was a close-up, and it was I think a minute long take, or yeah, it was a 2-minute long take on the actress as she eats dinner with her daughter who's dead, and it's just the process of her battling between wanting to look at her and not wanting to look at her because she doesn't want to accept the fact that she's dead, but at the same time she wants to relive this memory of trying to be with her daughter. And if you look at that from a perspective of now, with so many lives that have been lost from so many different reasons in Lebanon, we're all trying in some way or another to bring what we know of Beirut back, from the people that we lost, from the locations that have closed, from the locations that have exploded and everything. We're in this constant state of trying as much as we can to relive what we once knew was Beirut, but at the same time, we don't want to admit that it's at a point where we might need to leave. So there's this struggle. I think that me having done this then, I did not know I would look back at it now and look at it from the perspective of a socio-political situation. So yeah.
See, that is an interesting point that you are bringing up. And one of the questions that are being asked about is the socio-political situation and the influences it has had on films. Well, we only have 15 minutes left. I'm going to allow it to go to 2-3 minutes over. Don't worry about that. But in order for us not to allow everybody to say something also, let me ask the second question, which is the challenges of filming that anybody of you may have met, or any anecdotes that you might want to share with us. In no particular order, whoever wants to jump in. Maybe Adam, since you were talking, you want to say something with the challenges?
Can you repeat the last part of the question?
The challenges or an anecdote, something that funny thing or amusing or whatever that you might want to share. And then let's be very brief because we don't have much time left.
Yeah. An anecdote. So basically, actually, I was talking about the close-up, so I think I'll talk about the scene of the close-up. So basically, my cinematographer and my cinematographer, who he also DP'd the short. Basically, he has this running joke about the moment he caught me in the middle of the scene where she's with her daughter and she's eating and everything like that. So he's a very close friend of mine, but we're very opposites in emotion. He's very dry. I'm very I want to be emotional about the thing. I want to enjoy the process and everything in that mentality. So to this day, I think you'll never forget the first take we did for the scene when the actress was having her breakdown, having her kid's favorite meal. He's hearing sniffs and he's assuming that it's from the actress, but then he looks to his right and he just finds me in this very state, and it was a moment that I always remember, because at this point I think I was very vulnerable in front of him and he had never seen me in that kind of vulnerable state. So it was just a funny thing that to this day we kept as an inside joke, and that was basically the case.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So let's talk about.
Yeah. No, I'm one of those directors that just get very emotional when they see whatever.
You were getting emotional on your own film.
Yeah. And I think it happens once on every set I know.
Yeah. So we have really literally 15 minutes left. I'm going to go 15 minutes over, but please let's go quickly around and talk about any challenges you may have run into. Soraya, would you like to address that?
Sure. I think this was 10 years ago, so I think the political climate is completely different from what we're seeing today. So I was actually speaking to Zayn about how it kind of feels strange to talk about the challenges that I faced as a filmmaker 10 years ago, when so many people in Lebanon are suffering right now, and it's just with this economic meltdown, it's so infuriating and heartbreaking. I would say, back then I still did focus on the political instability of the country through the lens of artists, and I also focused on how they perceived that the sectarian structure of the government is a flawed one and deeply divisive as well, which leads to chronism. So I think I really wanted to ensure that I showcase artists from diverse backgrounds and socioeconomic backgrounds, as well as diverse backgrounds in the sense of religious affiliations as well. So that was one of the challenges. But I feel bad talking about challenges when I
totally understand what you're saying. Therefore, yes. Let me rephrase that question.
Sure.
Some of the films are have been done a bunch of years ago, which represents a period that was completely different. And let's combine the two questions that Lucy, our festival team member, asked. One of them is, how were your films received in Lebanon? And then can they find an audience there? And the other one is, how much filmmaking is currently influenced by the political economic situation in your country? So the challenges can be addressed from the point of view of what would it take today? And is it at all possible to film anything today? We're going to be talking about this tomorrow in tomorrow's panel. And I'll take a minute to announce that now. The Lebanese American University is hosting a Zoom panel, a webinar tomorrow. And the information of that can also be found on our website, the Socially Relevant Film Festival website. And you can go and register there. We're going to be addressing Lebanese cinema today, yesterday, today, and tomorrow. So, but feel free to address the challenges, not only from the point of view of the film as you were filming it, but also what it would take today and in the current climate. So, Paul, maybe, yeah, because yours is quite a bit of a challenging film in terms of what you may have run into while filming.
Yeah. So yeah, we had the premiere in 2018, and it took the government about a year to the film. When we had a screening at the French embassy, and that's when, for the first time, we had members of the audience who were actually from the government and from the water establishment industries. I was really surprised that it took that long for them to sort of notice, because we'd been in the newspapers, we'd also been on UTV. And we've been shown around, and they were actually quite positive about what we were showing, and this and that. There was some interesting interaction, but I mean, I think one of the biggest sort of challenges was as soon as you whip out a camera and start filming in certain areas, you could potentially get in trouble, permission, and even as a registered journalist. Absolve me from some of these issues. So you have to pay amount to make a film, and then so we did that, and then finished, and then we wanted to show it. And this is what I find very problematic, was that when the Beira Arab Film Festival applied for the permit to show it, they then wanted to make some changes, and some of the changes were the scenes of the demonstrations following the trash crisis. And yet those very scenes were on television. They were showing anything new. I mean, the footage I took, it was someone else that gave me some of that footage. So we just had to tone down the sound a little bit, things like that. But what's really problematic is that they actually said that this is an environmental documentary film that we're going to allow to be made. I don't know if that has changed since 2018. This is very indicative of what's going on in sort of environmental journalism and filmmaking and things like that globally, and that was very much the case in Lebanon, which is a big challenge. And just sort of pulling out a camera is always a challenge, and even if you have the permits, everything else, and sometimes we lost footage because of that.
It's a very interesting point you are making.
I'm sure probably everybody here has experienced.
Yeah, that is interesting that you are saying that, because if the footage was shown on news, it's okay. But if it's shown in the documentary film, then it has to be censored or something, Very, very interesting point there. Exactly. So, so a few more takers for the challenge question and how your film were received in Lebanon.
I can say something. Sure, yeah. We were filming at a hotel, so it was very difficult to have access to the rooms before, for block rehearsal. So it was very challenging having to maneuver that. And the framing wise, we were really restricted with what you could see. So we were very restricted with our framing as well. I guess those are the technical challenges. I think when it comes to socio-political, that bit of the question, I think you cannot escape. I think when you are making a Lebanese film, just so much instability has been ingrained in our history that you can't really escape. I think talking about political instability and the effects of war and all of that on our storytelling, even when you do talk about issues that are not really related to the effects of war. So, how was my film received? I think it was a heavy film it's a heavy film to see, and some people who could see their own families in that family, it was very difficult for them to watch it, and that's sort of what I remember. I haven't really screened physically the film. It has screened, but I wasn't there for the screening. But the kind of feedback that I received, pretty much, uh, collective agreement that it was difficult to watch for some people. So.
Yeah. Well, the audience can go online and be the judge for themselves whether it is difficult to watch or not. So we'll hope that a lot of people will log in and view the films that we have been talking about. This is Manara, and let me go quickly and introduce all the titles. August 4th, where is it? Why is it not showing? Yeah. It's not showing. Manara is what we were talking about. August 4, 2020 is Yara's film that she can tell us about in a second. Anagnorisis is Ghada's film. And Paul's film, We Made Every Living Thing from Water. And, sorry, that's not in this session. Tomorrow we will see, my computer is acting up. See, it's not only in Lebanon that we have issues with the internet. Tomorrow we will see is Soraya's film, and we have Home is Adam's film. So anybody wants to address the question of challenges with their film while filming, or what it would be like to film today if you were making the same film today under the current circumstances, or how was your film received if it was screened already? So let us know about that. Ghada?
Yeah, so I'll jump in and mention having dance as an element in the film was a challenge itself, because it would easily go into a dance video, and this is something that I didn't want. I wanted to maintain the film element, so it was very tricky treating dance from the perspective of a filmmaker and not treating it from the perspective of a dancer slash choreographer slash videographer. And answering the question about how it was received, I would highlight here to see how the change of the Lebanese community to cinema, since it is an experimental film, it was not that well received by the audience in Lebanon, mainly by older age groups, because were used for so long in the Lebanese cinema to narratives, to very straightforward, to heavy dialogue films, and it was harder, let me say, for old generations to understand the film. I even had, as a quick anecdote, my film is only 5 minutes, and I was having my old aunt watching it, and my film ended, and then the credits went up, and then she was like, "Oh, so the film begins." She even thought that the 5 minutes are just beginning for the film and not the film. And yeah, yeah, although I have to say that my friends at uni, people my age, had absorbed the film much better and interpreted it much better. So maybe this is just to highlight also a shift in the type of audience and their understanding and interpretation to cinema.
Yeah, that's a very important point. And that's why we wanted to include experimental films, short films, animation, documentary, narrative feature, straight narratives. I mean, we wanted to give a full spectrum of what is possible. Of course, what I'm saying is that it doesn't represent this event here, Unbroken Memory and Identity in Lebanese Cinema, and the 16 films you're going to see online do not represent the end all and be all of Lebanese cinema. To do that, we would need a month-long program. But this was like a tasting of what is possible. And hopefully this will be something that we continue to do. So we have, oh, we've lost one of you. Where is everybody? Yeah. Okay. Adam has left. I guess if he comes back, fine, we can allow him. Who didn't talk about the, yeah, Yara did not, about the challenge and the reception and all that.
I think something that helped with me being able to make this movie is that it was an animated movie, so I just had to sit in my room and animate. It wasn't like I needed to be in Lebanon or go out and find a crew or anything. So I basically had my thoughts, my headspace in my room, and I was able to make it, which probably made the experience even more personal because I was working on it alone and I was working in my space, and I just poured all of my emotions into it. But for the audience, I obviously didn't have an official screening. So when I was screening it to my classmates that were with me in the animation class, none of them were Lebanese, obviously, they were all foreigners. And they were very shocked, and it was well received by them, but I feel like it had an impact on them. They kind of realized how big it was and how it affects people that were directly affected by the explosion. So it worked there. But when I screened it to my friends and family here, it was also well received. But I think it was well received the most by my friends who had left the country with me at the same time, because I feel like their feelings were also validated and shown on screen. So it felt like someone else was experiencing the same thing and they weren't experiencing it alone, which made me feel good. But one thing that I realized is that in the beginning, there's the sound that I had to put footage of the explosion, and I didn't realize how sensitive, because in the beginning it wasn't triggering me for some reason. I wasn't responding to it in that way, but it did trigger other people. So there was that kind of response where I had to be careful and add like trigger warnings and tell them that there's the sound of the explosion coming now, and so people had different reactions to it. But I think I was just glad that I was able to connect with a lot of people and also raise awareness and show what happened to my country to people who didn't experience it.
Yeah, that was very powerful. And part of, us also, we were wondering about the graphic part, about the explosion. And in the future, I'm wondering if it's not possible to put that into animation as well, because then it's a little bit more palatable in that sense. However, if we want to talk about this, for example, our film festival, the Socially Relevant Film Festival, is a festival which started because of the proliferation of violence on screen and off. And I was becoming sick and tired of seeing all these graphic violences on screen and off screen with posters all over the place. And I felt we need to do something about it. And I totally understand the position of people about the explosion. But in certain stories, what we are talking about is gratuitous violence. And however, you need to show at least something so people understand the gravity, the dimension of it. If you don't at all, then I think you've missed the point. But overdoing it also desensitizes and people do not react to that. So we are 5 minutes past the hour. I'm going to give you all guys a chance to say one last thing if you want to add a comment or say something. But before doing that, I want to thank you all for being here. Thank you for making movies. Thank you for letting us show them, letting us screen them. And to the audience who are viewing, please log online. Here is the website where you can find all the buttons you need to press to go and watch all these wonderful films by these talented filmmakers. So if anyone wants to make a last-minute comment, please feel free to do so before we say goodbye.
I just want to thank you and Nadim and everyone at the SRFF and LAUNY for this event and for highlighting Lebanese cinema. It means a great deal.
Thank you so much. Zayn was there yesterday at the opening, and we got a chance to chat and ask him about his future projects and so on, but I think that's another program. Anyone else? Last minute thoughts?
Yeah, for me, it was really valuable to connect with other filmmakers who are passionate about Lebanon. And I really want to also thank the filmmakers from Lebanon. And I hope everyone in Lebanon are safe and will persevere through this really difficult time.
Yes, very, very difficult time. And I want to tell you all that if you want to log in and view your colleagues' films, I'd be more than happy to extend an invitation to you. So write to me separately on the email, and I will send you a code so that you can log in and watch each other's films now that you have heard the stories behind them. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you all for all our audience who are watching. We have hearts. We have Nadine Asmar, who has been instrumental in helping us connect with some of the rights holders of the films, and it's been wonderful. Michel Poitier, Carmen Aharonian, Lucie Tripon, and all the other wonderful viewers. We have a lot of people. We had at some point over 20 people have gone off to attend to their other commitments. Okay, everyone, thank you. Let me see, there is one last comment. Albert says, merci everyone. So voila, merci. And I look forward to seeing all your work. Okay, great. Thank you all. I'm going to get off the broadcast.